For a lot of us entrepreneurs, our products, what we bring into the world are digital products. So these are web apps, SaaS products, and things like that. And one thing that happens is that a lot of the time, these products, especially in the first iteration, are built by technical people. That comes with its own problems. As you know, this podcast, the Tech Your Business podcast, is here to communicate technical concepts without jargon because technical people love to talk jargon. And in the same way, technical people building the first iteration of most products build things that are easy for them to use, but most times are either not intuitive or they are difficult for the average, for the everyday person to use. And that brings a lot of friction, that causes a lot of issues, and it makes a lot of people lose customers who would have likely been lifetime customers, but they find the product difficult to use and they just look for something else. And that's what today's guest on the podcast, that's the problem he solves. Today's guest is Daniel Andor, and he'll be talking to us today about product design, about user experience design. So welcome to the show, Daniel.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on. So now, I think for business owners who might not be familiar with the concepts, I think let's just start with that. Although I know a lot of people would, most people would be. What exactly is this UX design in simple terms that you talk about?
In a way, it helps to translate, as you mentioned, that jargon and how technical people do stuff into the world of the less technical people. So if you remember the whole history of like computers when you had to like write the C sharp, C++
Yeah.
thingy. Okay, so that was in a way a first version of the interface, which was you actually had to have a lot of skill to actually use it. You have to know the language, you have to know how to write the prompts and so on. And then we transitioned into like point and click. So it's like use the pointer and click on stuff, which helped in a way to get laptops and computers in the hands of a lot of people, like the average people, and they can deliver the value that they need from that. So this transition and how you transfer from something that's very technical into something that's easy to use for your target customer, because that's another thing. So you don't necessarily have to build something that's used by everybody, but it has to resonate and be easy to use for your target customer. So once you kind of define who your customer is and who your type of customer is, then you tailor how they use the product to their worldview, or how they think and how they can use it in order to deliver the value that they need to deliver from it.
Okay, so now for this UX, how important is it to businesses? Because I know you've mentioned, I've mentioned to some reasons why businesses need it, but maybe you can, as someone who's in the field, you can give us maybe an example of a business who actually had bad UX and had issues because of that, and maybe got a very good or great result after improving their UX. So we see how important
Sure,
it is.
sure. There are a lot of examples. I usually don't like to go into the statistics. Like there is a Forrester research from I don't know how many years ago that mentioned the importance of UX and how $1 that you invest in this field ends up in like $100 or something like that as a value. Even the guys from Airbnb give a lot of value. They mentioned that this whole idea of user-centric design or UX design, the managed to make the shift from almost failing the company to something that is today, the value of Airbnb. But it depends on field to field, customer to customer. And this is why I usually don't like to just throw examples around. There are a bunch of them besides these two that I mentioned. But I guess the easiest way is to think about your own perspective as a business owner. Like when you build something or when you buy something, let's put it that way. If you put yourself in the shoes of your customer, when you buy something, then how easy or challenging is to understand the value that certain product or service delivers. And that kind of makes the difference between you coming back to like, I don't know, use it once more or just switch to something else.
Okay,
So yeah,
so
there is
I
the
think
Forrester example, but I'm not a big fan of those like statistics from a good couple of years ago. There are some other studies as well. But yeah, kind of just to sum it up, it's kind of like that.
Okay, so I think you said people building these things, you need to look at how easy or challenging it is to use these products they build. So now when you see business owners building websites, building web apps or apps and things like that, what are some common mistakes you see them make that make it difficult for the end user to appreciate these apps?
Oh, there are a bunch of them. It really depends on the stage of the founders, I would say, and how well they understand the customers and what is the main value that they deliver. And like just going from this main value that they deliver, a lot of time and also understanding your specific customer type, a lot of times, especially early stage founders, try to do two things. Do feature parity with something that's out there and they consider it the main competitor. So if they say, oh, we build the same thing as this product, like we build something like Airbnb, let's put it that way, if you still use the
Mhm.
examples. So that means that we have to have exactly the same features as Airbnb plus something else. And this is how they usually think. The problem is that like these products are built like for years, and getting the to feature parity takes you a lot of resources, whatever you mean, money, time, people, whatever you mean. It's just a lot of resources. And then what a lot of founders, again, early stage founders especially, end up doing is that they don't show anything to customers up until they reach feature parity. So that means in what I usually tell them is like almost playing the lottery. So instead of like you have the option to like just do it once, like you build 6 months a year, and if you get it right, that's fine. You might win the lottery, but most of the times you end up not doing fine and just losing everything. So this is what most do. And then you have this idea of lean products or lean principles of building products, which means that you start to build in iterative steps. And if you go back to understanding your customer and the value that you deliver to them, then you know that it's not about feature parity, because if it would be feature parity, then they would be already on Airbnb. So you don't build a feature parity product. You just nail down to what's critical for them that the other ones don't have, and you build around that. So you deliver the value faster to them. You can test and see if the value that you thought that it will actually make the difference, it's making any difference or not. And so you can test if you nail the problem, if you nail the solution, and if you can build a somewhat functional business around that case. So that's one of the things. They try to build, in a way, mimic something that was built in years. And this end up basically for them to just give them a lot of times just one shot to get it right, instead of building it in an iterative way, which gives you a lot of input from the customers you can use to iterate on your product. And then just basically you increase your own chances of succeed. The other thing is, and this is more specific to technical people, is that they think a lot of times that the customer has kind of the same skills as they have, and then they don't think about like flows and like how customers should interact with the product in itself. It's more like, oh, like there is everything they can use, and like you have a page with like 10 buttons or 10 options on it, which is a lot of times. um, and this comes also with the fact that a lot of like even I have these kind of discussions with some of our clients, that they think about number of clicks that you have to have, like, oh, we don't want something farther than 3 clicks.
Hmm.
And it was a concept from years ago when they were thinking about this, but honestly, it's not about how many clicks you give. It's like, does this thing make sense and delivers value or not? Because if it would be just the number of clicks, then you basically all of the apps will have all the options in one page,
Yeah.
which is not the case. Another thing that's also important is like, especially early stage, again, they use libraries like design or UI kits or stuff like that that they buy or get out of the shelf, and they end up in a way almost ruining those libraries because they are built on specific rules, and they just end up tweaking like, oh, the button is too high, so let's make it smaller, and the font is too whatever, let's make it different. And basically they end up breaking the rules. So instead of like using the default library which is out there, and they kind of just mess it up, and this gives a poor quality of the product. And like the customers nowadays they have high expectations for what's an MVP. So the fact that it was a couple of years ago, they say that, oh, if you're not ashamed of your MVP, you launch too late. Uh, it doesn't it's not that it's not true anymore, but the definition of what's an MVP, like either way, we can geek this MVP thing out a lot, but uh, because it's one of those concepts that are, I would say, very poorly understood, and a lot of people are defining it in a lot of different ways. But what end up happening, it's either you launch too soon, either you launch too late, and then you don't know how to make the correct calls on what's next. So circling back a bit on the MVP stage, the customers nowadays have higher expectations. So you have to understand what are those expectations. Otherwise, if you launch something that's below the expectations of your target audience, and then you might just fail because you don't met that. So you can't launch like, I don't know, a product that looks like crap in a sector that there is high competition with high expectations, because people will just don't care about it and won't test it. And you might end up saying that, oh, the idea is bad, but the idea might be good, but the execution might be poor.
Yeah. Okay, so I think you mentioned three things. You mentioned people trying to build products with as many features as an established product, and trying to get feature parity with the established products. You mentioned the second part where they think the customers are the same skill level, so they make them the products as complicated as they expect. And you mentioned the third one where people use template libraries while they might be in markets where the customers have high expectations of the design of the MVP. So the MVP is the minimum viable product. So going to the first point you mentioned, while we're saying it, it reminded me of a product I signed up for. I signed up for a lot of things because of what I do. So I signed up for a product last week. It's for video and all that. And I haven't been able to use it because, like you mentioned, it has so many features. Like I look at it and I'm like, where do I start? Why do I want to do this? Do I want to waste my time doing this? And okay, no, I said it. It was actually about a month ago because I know my first month I had to cancel. The first month should expire by maybe next week or so. I had to cancel, and they emailed me that they're going to give me a £1 subscription to continue. I'm like, I can't. It's just too complicated. And I understand why a lot of business owners do this, because a lot of times they are not sure what features the customer would find most important. So most times they just try to throw everything and see what the customers use first and throw everything to see what sticks. So going by this, your lean approach of how does a business launching their products choose what feature would be most important to their market, to their ideal customer, so that they build around that, they start with that, and then from there they can expand. So how do they know what to start with?
I guess we can use the example that you gave with the video editor, because it's a very good one.
Yeah.
Just think about it. If you are like somebody who's doing this for a living, and you use tools like, I don't know, After Effects and Premiere Pro and stuff like that, then it's not a problem that it's something too complicated, because that's your world and you know how to use it. But if you are like me, who's using video editing to like just cut some videos out and stuff like that, and like maybe add some thumbnails or whatever, text on top, and then kind of that's it, and like a fade or whatever. So basic stuff, right? Then if I open Premiere Pro or After Effects, I don't know how to start. It's like what I need, I don't need these options here. I just need to put the video there and cut this whole thing down, right? And there are tools that are doing that, and that's the only thing they can do. It's not like you can use it, like it's not a substitute for Premiere Pro. It's like a tool that, like, for people like us, like the normal people that want to cut a video, it's good enough. They target a different, like they are video editors, you might say. They are kind of in the same sector, but their target audience is very different. Hence the expectations are very different. So if you are thinking about, okay, how we nail the list of features that we need, Sorry. Then you kind of start from this, okay? Who we target with this product? Like, what's the problem we want to solve, right? And who's the target audience? Because if they are Premiere Pro and After Effects users, we will kind of build a complex product because this is what they will expect. They will want to do everything, and then it comes the but what? Why they would switch from something they already have and come to us? What's the difference? It's cheaper, it's better, it's faster, it's whatever. Where's the difference, right? If we know that we want to target, I don't know, maybe people that create like podcasts and they just want to cut out a couple of videos to put on YouTube, that's a different target audience. We will have something that's easy to just like upload a video, cut it in a couple of pieces, maybe have some kind of templates. So hence you understand in a way the problem or their jobs to be done. Like if you want to go jobs to be done route, we understand what is the job that those people want to achieve and who are them. And then we target those specific needs. But you can't do this as long as you don't pick the target audience and you don't understand their challenges. Otherwise, you will just build a copycat of something that's out there and maybe put a feature on top, and kind of that's it. And then you have to rush in a way and find some other differentiators of like why people would switch, because that's the thing. If they are already using the product, then there is a cost of switching from one product to the other. And then you have to, like, in a way, there has to be a big enough problem so that cost of switching is not a big problem for them. Or the other way around, if they are not using a product, then why would they even open something like this? They might not have the need, because that's the other thing with a lot of people. Oh, they are not using anything, so they will switch for us. Well, guess what? Laziness is the biggest competitor ever. And this is why it usually doesn't appear, and when you do competitor mapping, there is
Yeah.
no such thing as like laziness. Nobody puts it there. Or the other one is Google Sheet. Like that's my favorite. Like if somebody can do it in Google Sheet or Google Docs, and they are lost. So it's really hard to make a switch from there. But you have to be very, very clear on who's your target audience. You have to have discussions for them to understand what's their worldview, what's their problem, maybe what kind of products they are using at the moment. So if we are talking with a Premiere Pro user, or we're talking with I don't know what, I use VN. So let's say VN user or VEED, or what are the other ones. So you have to understand this, and you have to understand what are the problems they want to solve, or the jobs they want to solve with the product that you want to build.
Okay, so I think it goes back to fully understanding your customer, fully understanding what they're currently using, so you meet them where they are and at the point of
Mhm.
their needs. So there was
Yeah.
something else. That was the third thing you mentioned, which was building people using template libraries or using publicly available libraries to as the framework or the start of their project.
Google Material, yeah. Most of
Yes.
them are Google Material, which is not a big problem. Like I tell founders, like, look, I mentor founders in accelerators and incubators from like quite a lot. And in my opinion, the problem is not that they are using a library, especially early days. It's not a problem. The problem occurs when they start to break the patterns of the library
Mm,
because they think that usually it's like, oh, the spacings are too high, or the button is too big, or the input field is whatever. And they end up breaking those. And then when you take a look at the whole thing, like if you're not a designer, you might not know what's broken, but you have a feeling that something is off.
yeah.
If you're a designer, you know exactly what's broken. If you take a look at the screen, I know exactly the spacings are off. But otherwise, it's just something is not okay. And when they start to break these patterns, what also happens quite a lot is that they don't think about flows, they think about screens. So they will say, oh, we need this screen to do X and we need this screen to do Y, and they just cramp everything on those screens. But what I talk to a lot of founders, like, look, let's just map this out. Okay, we stay on a Miro board and we map out like what people should do, and then we try to make sense of, like, besides what they should do, how we can make this thing be as easy and as smooth as possible. And sometimes that means that we break down a couple of steps in multiple screens, so you don't have just one screen where you collect information. You might have three. And some might be, oh, but that's a lot of screens. Well, yeah, but just think about it. When you have to input, like you have a form with like 10 input fields, wouldn't you like to like have three input fields and then three input fields and then three input fields instead of like, oh, there is a very long form with 10 input fields.
True. Okay, so I think that answers that question. But when you look at it, a lot of business owners too, they've listened to us so far. They probably have a product out there already. So do you have a simple process to test that digital product, that website, that whatever they have out there, to know if the product is working for their end users, to know if the flow is okay, the user experience
Mhm.
is good? Yeah.
Like there are a couple of ways. We usually work with products, so the websites might be a slightly different. But for products, there are tracking tools. Obviously, besides Google Analytics, there is Hotjar, PostHog, and a lot of other ones. And you can track events with Mixpanel and stuff like that. That like basically tracking a lot of stuff. That's one way to do it, and that gives you, in a way, all the quantitative data. This is what's happening, and you can see kind of what's happening. With tools like Hotjar, you can even see like video recordings of the screens, like to actually see what people are doing. But
Yeah.
what you don't get is why people are doing what they're doing. And what we sometimes do is we actually ask customers on a call like this and give them a task, and we just want to see what they are doing. And we ask them to actually think out loud.
Hmm.
And then they walk us through on what they are doing and how and what they think in the meantime. And that gives you a lot of value to understand what they are looking for, why they are looking for specific things. Like maybe they would click on a button, but they don't find the button because the label might be different than what they expect,
Hmm.
or the positioning might be different than what they expect. So just sitting on calls with them, like for like 15, 30, no, 20, 30-minute calls, that gives you tremendous value on how they are using the product and why they are using it in that specific way. What end up happening a lot of times is that founders expect this feedback to just come to them. Oh, we put like a feedback button here and people will just click on it. Or we
Yeah.
have like a chat and people will just type it in and stuff like this. Most of the time, it doesn't work like that, because what you will get is like the two extremes. Somebody that's like very, very happy and somebody that's very, very pissed, and that's it. And you don't have the middle, and most people are probably in the middle. What I still remember, like when I started, we had we had a feature that we wanted to work on one of the products, because we thought that a lot of people are asking for that specific feature. It was actually one or two people, but they sent out the same feedback a lot of times.
Hmm.
So and again, even then, you just, besides the fact that you get the extremes, you just get one side of the story. And what end up happening, especially with founders that are not that experienced, is that customers end up asking for features, and founders end up delivering the feature that the customer asked for, right? The problem is that it's not the customer's job to come up with the solution. They ask for a feature, that doesn't mean that that's the feature that they need. It just means that they think that that's the feature that they will solve their problem. And your job as a founder is to understand what's the problem behind the feature request and actually find out what's the best solution for that, or if it makes sense to act on it, because you have to know your own business and product strategy to see if what those people ask for makes sense on the long term for you, or it's just like something that you don't want to act on. But you have to be very clear on, we do this or we don't do this. And then you also have to understand what's the problem, why they are asking for that specific feature, and you can actually ask them like why you want this feature, or how you think about this feature, how this will solve your problem, what's your problem. uh, and then once you understand the problem behind the feature request, then you can come up with a solution. Sometimes it might
Hmm.
end up being exactly what they asked for, but other times might not be the right solution, because the customer, most of the times your customer, it's not that, I don't know, knowledgeable on how to craft the solution, right? They might
Yeah.
not be technical, they might not know what it's possible or feasible technically, and how they can actually build it is that they might saw something like that in another product and they thought that that's the best way to solve their problem.
Okay. So now for business owners who plan to build a new digital products, I think from the conversation so far, you said a lot of them just look at something existing and try to match the features there, or they go pick up maybe the material design or some other library and start building from that. So for business, so they don't make any mistakes, especially with the usability of these products and co. What would you advise a business owner planning to launch a new digital product to do before they actually start developing or designing or building?
I would say make many mistakes. It's easier and cheaper to make it before developing. Yeah, what as you mentioned, a lot of people just go from idea to actually coding, right?
Yeah.
But there is a field, some call it product discovery, when you basically do that whole learning in a different medium that's easier and cheaper and faster. We do that in Figma prototypes. So when one of the founders come to us, we map out a lot of stuff like context and the customer and the competition and how kind of what's the flow and stuff like this, just to have an understanding of like this is the context we play in and kind of this is what we want to build. And
Yeah.
then together we kind of draft a solution. We create a prototype on that solution, which is basically just a fake product, if you want. It acts like a product, but it has no backend at all. You
Yeah.
just can click on stuff. And we do that in a couple of days. And then we jump on calls with like 5 to 7 customers or potential customers or people that match the target ICP. We jump on a call with them. Those calls last around 30 to 45 minutes. We give them a task and we want to see if they can deliver it or not. Uh, and this is to see if they can get through the flow that we thought about. Like they actually know how to navigate the solution, let's put it that way, if they understand the value the solution delivers for them, and if it's a match or not, because sometimes it might be, oh yeah, but it's not working for us. We had a project a couple of years ago where the problem was right. People needed a way to manage their projects, but the solution was way off. It's like
Mm.
nobody know how to use this thing at the level. And it was like eye-opening, like we delivered a prototype in a couple of days. It was like 1 week or something, the whole thing. And when we jumped on a call with the customers, it's like, oh, but this is like too complicated for us. We just need something like a Trello board so we can just drag things around. And
Yeah.
this had everything from a Trello board to labels to folders to assigned
Wow.
customers and a lot of stuff. So it would work for some different type of client that has like large teams, but for small companies, it was an overkill. But we learned about this in a couple of days, basically. The other option would have been, and that was the old way of them doing the product, is like, oh, we had this thing, we design it, we develop it. Development, it was like estimated to 6 months. So you learn about this thing in like 6 months, and I don't know how many hours and how many developers. So what you want to do, and as I mentioned in the beginning, is like it's almost like you play the lottery. You can play it with one ticket and you pay high, and you might win it, but the chances are usually against you. Or you
Yeah.
might just pay very small, but very small bets, but quite often. And the chances that you can actually tweak and iterate and get a winning streak out of it, it's way higher.
Okay, that's amazing. So now for business owners, I think they've learned you've given a lot of wisdom in that answer, building your own digital product and getting what to do before you get started. So for listeners or watchers on YouTube who want to continue this conversation, who want to learn more from you, who want to probably connect with you or work with you on their digital product launch, what's the best way they can reach you?
LinkedIn, I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so that's the easiest way.
Okay, so that's Daniel Andor on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. So that will be on the show notes. That will be on the screen for those watching on video once this episode is live. So if you learned something new from this episode with Daniel, share it with anyone who struggles with the usability, the flow of their digital products. And till next week when we are back with a brand new episode, don't forget to keep taking your business. Bye for now.